Bottom trawling is so important at a global scale because it provides 1/4 of all seafood catch. And so it's incredibly important that we continue to incentivize trawlers to be sustainable in order to maintain that global supply. The common misconception about bottom trawling is that it is inherently unsustainable. As long as a gear type can show that it is effectively managed and there is strong science, it can be sustainable.
In a world that needs high-protein, low-cost food supply, the BC trawl fishery does that very well. The only multi-species fishery I know of in the world where every pound of fish that is caught is accountable and it's in a fishing management system that protects habitat and requires selectivity.
I've been doing this for 30 years. We have a lot better equipment. It makes it easier to find what we're looking for. We have big mesh that releases all the small fish. You have to put everything that you catch in the logbook. We have catch sensors, tell me how much fish is in the net at a time. And the headline sensor shows me the bottom, exactly where my net is all the time. They kind of change everything. Fishing in the late 80s, there wasn't really any limits to what you could bring in. There was no quota system set in place.
We knew the catches were far in excess of, for many of the species, of what the sustainable levels were. In September of 1995, based on the concerns that we had, we closed the fishery for the first time since the 1940s. And that closure led to a rethinking of how to manage the groundfish trawl fishery moving forward. You know, the evolution is dramatic. It's a night and day change. They were each given a share of the allowable catch at the start of the year, and they knew how much they could catch. All fish is accounted for. All fish comes off of the total allowable catch. You truly have a sustainable harvest level. Managing a trawl fishery, a multi-species trawl fishery, especially a large multi-species trawl fishery to sustainable levels, is not a simple task.
Had a complete evolution of our fishery with the implementation of the ITQ system. Every species that is caught with our trawl vessels is recorded and data is collected to promote the sustainable fishery. They are monitored 100% of the time while they're on the water. We have 100% dockside validation as well, meaning that someone is monitoring the vessel as the fish is being offloaded to ensure accurate reporting.
You really need to have an understanding of exactly what is caught. That means you have to have eyes out on the ocean.
We have 4 cameras on this boat. They automatically come on as soon as we leave the harbor. They don't turn off until we get back into a harbor again.
100% electronic monitoring coverage. I think it just raises the bar and holds them accountable to the highest standard and encourages them to make choices that promote sustainability. The second part of the transformation would be in 2012 when we had the Habitat Conservation Agreement and the implementation of the trawl footprint.
There was a rising awareness of the presence and importance of both deep sea corals and sponges here in BC. Fisheries weren't being managed to minimize their impact on these habitats. The Habitat Conservation Agreement was a joint effort between several conservation organizations and the BC trawl fishery to develop a set of management measures that would reduce impacts on corals and sponges and other sensitive habitats. DFO implemented them, made them mandatory in the management plan. So one of the objectives that the conservation sector had with the Habitat Conservation Agreement was to limit the fishery's presence in deepest waters, anything over 800 meters that had been historically trawled. The reason we wanted to is because waters at those depths in the species, they're not adapted to dealing with physical disturbances, and their role in the marine ecosystem is very difficult to replace. The Habitat Conservation Agreement reduced the trawl footprint by 22% from its historical extent. And so the result was to put over 80% of BC's waters deeper than 800 meters off limits to the trawl fishery. So with the habitat bycatch conservation limit, What we did was create a quota for corals and sponges. So each vessel had a relatively small amount of coral and sponge that they were allowed to catch in any given year. The numbers were so small that they wanted to avoid catching any.
What that means now is that the fisherman knows that every tow is important and that he has to be aware of what he's catching on every tow. And he's thinking, am I going to catch coral? Is it going to shut me down?
Coral and sponge bycatch dropped by 90%. Fishers were actually actively avoiding areas of high coral and sponge so that they wouldn't catch them any longer. Since the changes in the early 2000s that were made to groundfish management, we have seen recovery of groundfish communities.
The BC groundfish trawl fishery really exemplifies a fishery that has gone through a tremendous transformation to now be a world-leading fishery with really amazing implementations around management and science.
Achieving the MSC certification is really validation for all of the hard work that's gone into creating the sustainable fishery. This change has been in the works approximately 30 years now. I think that it's incredibly great for our harvesters to feel validated in all of their efforts and all of the changes that they've made on the water to become sustainable. We hope that the groundfish trawl fishery in BC helps encourage other fisheries to implement some of the measures that we have or similar measures that are going to allow them to become sustainable.